Welcome to Pastor's Perspective, sponsored by Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa in Southern California. My name is Brian Perez, and if you're listening to this program on the radio on Monday, the 9th of May, it is not live. Hope you all had a nice Mother's Day. We'll be back tomorrow live in the studio to answer your questions. But if you're watching on Facebook.com/Pastor's Perspective or on Dr. Bobby Conway's 1 Minute Apologist channel on YouTube, you can call us on this Thursday afternoon until 5 p.m. Pacific time using the number right there on the bottom of your screen. Joining me today, Tommy Cota, the pastor of Hope Alive Church in Santa Ana. He's sitting in for Brian Broderson, who should be back on May 10th. It'll be good to have Brian in the studio. He's been... Where was he? I don't even know where he was.
Yeah, I know.
I think it was in Israel for a while.
Yeah, he was in Israel.
Yeah.
I think like in Greece or Italy, and yeah, I think he's part of the cohort.
Yes,
he's been.
Yes.
Just been trying to keep up with him through social media and looking at all the amazing pictures and places that he's been. But yeah,
I saw that he was in Cyprus. I thought he meant Cyprus, California. I'm like, you can make it here on time for the program, but no, he meant the other Cyprus.
Yeah.
Bobby Conway's here as well. He's the pastor of Image Church in Charlotte, North Carolina. You also see him on the 1 Minute Apologist channel on YouTube, and he's got a radio program too. It's called Unapologetic. A few days ago, Mike Chaddick was here, and he just gave your program a big old plug, Bobby. That was cool.
Oh, yeah, it was very gracious of him.
Yep. 888, no, there I go, giving the number. I'm not going to give the number because when you hear this on the radio, we're not live, and I don't want to mislead you. But if you're watching on Facebook and YouTube, we'll post the number there on the bottom of the screen. We're going to start this segment with Jermaine in Virginia. Welcome to Pastor's Perspective, Jermaine.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello. Oh, thank you for having me. I'm so excited. I listen to y'all all the time.
How do you listen?
Every single day. I listen in Farmer, Virginia on Equip FM.
Yes, Equip FM. Yep.
Yeah. My question is more what y'all think. outside of sin, the fall, and if the fall never happened, do you think the world would be like it is today with all the technology and everything, just no sin? Or would we still be in the garden?
What do you think, Tommy?
No, I think, it's a hypothetical question, of course, and I think if sin had never ever happened with Adam and Eve, we would be living in the presence of God, because I think that was the original. That's the heart of God, for Him to be with His creation and be in His, and for us to be in His presence. That's the heart of God, but we know that that's not reality. But I guess in a hypothetical kind of way, I don't know. I don't know if we have the kind of technology that we have. I'm just thinking right now off the top of my head, I don't know if we'd even probably need that kind of technology because, we'd be in the presence of God.
Yeah. We would already be in our eternal state.
Yes.
Oh.
Because, the whole thing is like, there's death in the world because of sin. So if sin never would have happened, there would be no death in the world.
You know what, though? I think I would have come along and I would have taken a bite of the apple, definitely. Or there would have been an Arrowhead water hanging somewhere and I would have just taken it. So I would have ruined it for everybody. I would have been Adam.
And again, this is all hypothetical. That's not the reality. The reality is sin did come into the world and God made a way, for us through His Son, Jesus Christ.
Bobby Conway, any thoughts from you?
Yeah, I think Tommy did a great job just recognizing we're in hypothetical territory. I guess we could also flip it, and I'm sure Tommy could, concede this as well. It's possible that we would have arrived at this technology way sooner if we weren't bogged down in our sin. And so it's possible that in a heavenly state, you got to think about how much was lost with the fall. It affected our mental capacities, our emotions, our physical longevity. So imagine if you had the original mental properties of being in, just a great place with that God-given, academic endowment, so to speak, that they would have been created with, because it seems like He's created with language and all of that. Who knows what the fall did in that moment? So, like, I could almost see an eternity with us doing work and stuff. Like, maybe it'll be unbelievable, maybe there will be technologies and all that stuff, but it'll be all sanctified. It'll be all glorified. It'll be all really neat what we're able to do. Now, I've contended this. I think Adam, perhaps, maybe Adam and Eve were the most miserable people to ever live. Now, but they were the happiest for maybe just a short season, but then the most miserable. And here's why. Can you imagine being Adam and Eve? For them, they were always looking back of thinking of what it was like in the Garden of Eden. They were looking back to perfection. For us, when we get saved, we're looking back at being east of Eden already on our way to an Edenic state. And so it's possible that they would have been really miserable with that. Like, oh my goodness, what happened here? And who knows what they would have lost from their creativity. But you think about the Tower of Babel, for example. I mean, look what they were able to do there. But when we get our minds in a glorified state, who knows what kind of creativity is out there for us.
Yeah. What do you think, Jermaine?
I think that's great. I just wonder, I'm like, oh, how would the world be if sin never happened? Would we be advancing as we're going along through all the thousands of years that we would have been? And, what would that have looked like had sin never happened? Yeah. I love your answers.
Well, thank you. Thank you for calling us today, Jermaine. Did you have anything else to add, Tommy?
No, I think it's just good. We get to look forward to heaven forever. So, now we have something good to look forward to.
Yep. And good point that Bobby brought up too, for Adam and Eve to be thinking back, man, we had it so good.
Yeah, I hate to be them. Right?
Yeah, we're looking forward to, we're going to have it good someday, but they were just like, oh, what did we do?
What did you do? What did you do?
This is your fault, woman. No, it's you.
Yeah, the blame fest. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, that was definitely not heavenly. Devon in California, you're next on Pastor's Perspective. Hi there.
Hello.
How can we help you?
I have one question.
Okay.
So I want to know, what did God see before he created colors?
Before he created colors? Wow, I guess I never even thought of that. Was it created separately or at the same time? What do you guys think, Bobby?
Okay, well, this is a very good question. And out of the mouth of babes, right? Out of the mouth of youngsters. I'm going to try to explain this in a way that hopefully makes sense. So when we talk about God seeing, that would assume that God has like maybe eyeballs, right? Like he's seeing. And I don't think we want to like think that God sees like we see. God is a spirit being that eternally existed. Now, when you ask, what did he see? I think that because God has all knowledge, that I think even before God created the world, God saw everything that was as it will be before it ever was. So you might want to chew on that for a little bit, but God saw everything as it was before it was. So picture God existing before he creates the universe. And you think, well, what did he see? And we try to picture this on our own from ourselves as physical beings, and it's very difficult because God is spirit, and all we know how to relate to is a world in which we see physical objects. But in a world before there was the world, God was existing. But because God's all-knowing, I think you could say that God saw before he created the same thing he saw after he created, because he didn't learn anything after he created it, because he already had that knowledge because he's all-knowing.
What do you think, Devon?
Yeah. Wait. What do you think? I think. What do you think of the answer? I think of the answer. I think it's pretty good. I think I kind of understand it.
Okay. Very good, Bobby. You get a pretty good.
Well, let me simplify it with one more statement. Think of it like this. Again, if God knows everything, even about you and about me before we were created, then once we arrive, he doesn't learn anything else about us because he already knew it. So if God knew what all the different colors are before he created them, then to your question, what did God see before he created colors? The same thing he saw after he created colors, because he didn't get new knowledge based on what he did.
Tommy, any thoughts?
No, I think that's good. It's just just thinking he created it, so he knew it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Devon, thanks for your question. 11 years old, huh?
Yeah.
So cool to get these kids calling in. Keep up the good work, parents, with these kids. Gabriel, you're next, calling from California. What's up?
Hi.
Hi, another kid. This is great.
Yes. So, my question is, is it true that in the Bible, God says that if you lead my sheep astray, you will not be forgiven?
Does it say that, Tommy? Maybe not in those words,
but I think I understand what he's saying. It's just leading people away from God, and then if we do that, then God won't forgive us. Is that the idea of what you're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, the good thing is that there's always the opportunity to be forgiven. So always remember that. But I think when we have a responsibility, and with our salvation and with the things of God, and what we want to do is we want to lead them to God. We want to lead them to truth. We don't want to lead them astray, because when we lead people away from God, that's really having like a sinful heart, right? And so I think what we have to do, and what I would encourage you to be mindful of, is always having that desire to say, you know what, I want to bring people closer to God and not away from God, because that's when we do that, that blesses the heart of God. Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
I think Gabriel might be referring maybe to Luke 17, where Jesus said, "It is inevitable that stumbling blocks will come, but woe to the one through whom they come." So this is an example of somebody, maybe leading someone astray, but that doesn't mean that they won't be forgiven. They could be forgiven, right, Bobby?
Yeah, because the Bible is clear, right? There's only one unpardonable sin, and that's to reject the message of the Holy Spirit, which is ultimately to reject Jesus as our Savior. So that's good news. But we do get these warnings, right? I mean, even Jesus in Matthew 18 said, whoever causes one of these little ones who believes in me to sin, it'd be better for him to have a great millstone fastened around his neck and to be drowned in the depth of the sea. So we see these warnings that are there. One thing in the Bible is there's constant warnings against false teachers. And we have to remember as Christians that the evil one is going to want to tempt us to try to fit in with the culture versus to stand out. And I'm sympathetic to that. Like, who wants to go out and, have enemies and not be liked and be looked at like we're weirdos? But as Christians, we have a responsibility to be faithful to what the Bible has to say, knowing that sometimes it might not sit well with people who are non-believers. And in the church, like Tommy has a job as a pastor, and I have a job as a pastor to keep our eyes out for there's wolves that will come in, right, in sheep clothing, and we have to be aware. And you think about, like, what's a wolf in sheep clothing? Well, I mean, a sheep, like, they just look innocent, they seem friendly, but a wolf, their teaching's dangerous. So false teachers can seem really nice, really charismatic, really outgoing, really kind, gregarious, but they're like wolves, right? Now, they might not even see themselves as wolves. I'm sure that they don't. It's just that their teaching is operating wolf-like in respect to the Word of God. So that's what I would say. We got to keep our eyes open, know the Word. Thank you for calling. It is great hearing these questions from you youngsters out there, for sure. You know, I hear you guys calling. I'm like, I never even heard the gospel till I was 19. Lord knows Tommy needed some rescuing.
Yes.
He was a hot mess, doing his time. So we love hearing these kids call.
Yeah, it is exciting. Good job on the parents.
Yep. Now, Gabriel, did you have another question?
Yep.
Yes. So my other question was, so when Eve took the fruit from the tree and gave it to Adam after she ate from it, would she be forgiven for that? For leading him astray, like how I was asking?
Tommy?
Well, the whole thing when you read about that account and you remember what both Adam and Eve tried to do is they tried to cover their own sin by getting the fig leaves and covering their shame, right? And making clothing out of these things. And what God did is God provided for them a covering. And so I think when you look at that part of the Bible, when it says God provided a covering, and really it kind of it shows that they were unable to make things right. And so God had to come in and kind of intervene and provide for them a covering. And so that covering, when you think of that covering, or we tend to think of also the covering of our sin, or now we have the washing and the cleansing of our sin, not just the covering, because at that point later on, the children of Israel would do their sacrifices to, for the Day of Atonement to cover their sin, but it was something that they had to continue to do, right, with those sacrifices. But now what we have is we have Jesus dying on the cross for us, and him dying for us and cleansing us of all sin and all of our unrighteousness. And so to answer that question is God did provide a way for them to have their shame, because of their sin, to be covered at that point. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, it does.
It does. Awesome. Gabriel, thanks for calling us today on Pastor's Perspective.
Thank you.
All right. Such eloquent listeners we have on this program. Cool.
Yeah, it's so cool. Just like what Bobby was saying, at 10 years old, I was not asking that question, these kinds of questions at all. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I think all I wanted to go and do at 10 years old was maybe ride my bike to the liquor store and go play Miss Pac-Man or something like that. Yeah.
Ah, yes. With his pocket full of quarters headed to the arcade.
Yeah.
All right, here's another kid question. This one was sent in on Facebook, not by the kid, but by the kid's dad. I don't think kids should be on social media, but that's just me. Jack says that his 6-year-old boy wants to know who made God. How do we answer a question like that, Bobby?
So there is a problem with the question. And it's a good question, but it's a problematic question because the question assumes that God was made, and God wasn't made. Because if you were to say, well, object X made God, well, then object X would be God.
Mm-hmm.
But then if you were to say, well, who created object X? Object Y. Well, then object Y would be God.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you were to say, well, who created object Y? Object Z created object Y. Well, then object Z would be God. And what you have is what is known as an infinite regress. So God is the uncaused cause of all things. He's the beginningless beginner. He's the uncreated creator. So it's right to say, so what happens is there's an argument now. I might be leaving the 10-year-old realm here for a moment, but it's known as the cosmological argument. everything that begins to exist has a cause, premise 1. The universe began to exist, premise 2. With the conclusion, therefore, the universe has a cause. Now, premise 1, notice, it says, everything that begins to exist has a cause. So when we say, who created God? Well, how do we get around this premise? Well, God didn't begin to exist. God exists necessarily. God is the uncreated creator of all things. God is timeless. And so that is the way we begin to look at this. And so everything that begins to exist has a cause. And then the universe began to exist, therefore the universe has a cause. So God didn't begin to exist. And to get into answering who created God gets into what I described as an infinite regress.
Tommy Cota.
Yeah, I was just thinking of this question right here too, is that, sometimes I think we, or when I say we, people, we ask this question because, well, how our concept of time and our concept of just beginning and end, there's someone caused it, or we have this whole concept and this idea, even with the whole creation, I think, with our parents and, our grandparents. And so there's that kind of a beginning.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's hard to wrap our minds around the fact that God has always been. Mm-hmm. He's outside of these realms of time, and he is the creator. He's the one who spoke it all into existence. And, this is a crazy truth, for even our minds to really fully, I think, comprehend that these things. And I don't know, what would Bobby have to say about that?
Yeah, well, I mean, all of this stuff is fascinating, and it's wheels off discussion. I mean, Leibniz, the mathematician and German philosopher who existed several hundred years ago, was very interested in, explanations, like with the question, why is there something instead of nothing? And that is something that we have to ponder. Like, why is there something instead of nothing? So when we ponder, why is there something instead of nothing? This is what makes atheism so hard for me to bite onto, because the atheists would say that nothing took nothing and made everything, or made something, and then yet I'm criticized as a Christian theist for believing that something took nothing and made something. So it seems like atheism is more closed-minded than theism, because theism is willing to follow the evidence all the way to where it leads. Where atheism says no, and it's known as methodological naturalism. Methodological naturalism is the method that does scientific study assuming that naturalism is the only thing that is true. So it zips up the universe, so to speak, and says, we cannot leave room for a divine foot to enter into our realm. And so it only looks for materialistic causes for the explanation of things. But the problem with this is, I think we're more open-minded because we're willing to live with we're willing to say, let's get behind the unseen realm. I mean, scientists, they believe in things that they can't see with the naked eye. I mean, you think about quarks and protons and neutrons and quantum mechanics and some of the different things that are out there that are really fascinating. But when it comes to how did we get here, why is there something rather than nothing? Well, our options are, we can say that atheism is true. Therefore, how did we get here? Well, we got here because nothing created all this. Well, then you really don't have nothing, because nothing can't make anything. So that nothing has to be something. So it kind of falls apart, and that's why I can't buy into that. Or you could say that the universe always existed. That's the explanation. It was always here. But according to modern day cosmology, we know that the universe began to exist. I suppose you could say that the universe is an illusion, like Buddhists say, that, it just appears to exist, but we don't live that way. We live as if when the light turns yellow and it's going to turn red, that we need to slow down or we might really die. We don't take prescriptions like that's an illusion. We follow that because we know that there's consequences. So is the universe an illusion? Is that an explanation? Or is the universe always here? Or did the universe come out of nothing? Or did God create the universe? And I think the most plausible explanation is a theistic one, that we have been created by a creator.
Good stuff. Jack, thanks for sending in your 6-year-old's question. And Jack himself also had a question. So he just wants to know, where in the Bible does it talk about Jesus being a carpenter? Does it say that anywhere, Tommy?
Yeah, it does. I think I'm sure it says that in the Gospels. And this was something that Jesus did because Joseph, his earthly father, was a carpenter. And so it would be very common for children, especially sons, to follow in those footsteps of their father, to work the same kind of job and same kind of work that their dads did. And so we know that Joseph, who was Jesus's earthly father, was a carpenter, and that's the kind of job that Jesus had as well.
Bobby, what did you want to add?
Yeah, I think that Tommy's exactly right, that we see in Mark 6:3, because I think if he wanted to know a reference, I had an opportunity to look that up for us. But, Jesus is called a carpenter in Mark 6:3, and then he's called a carpenter's son in Matthew 13:55. And so Tommy's explanation was spot on. And, Tommy, you have such a humble demeanor. It's almost hard to picture you, as a ganger, as a guy behind bars. You just seem too sweet of a guy for that to happen. So it's quite the testimony, seeing that big old smile, the humility, your love for Jesus, and it's a real privilege to do the show with you. Because it sounds like we all would have been scared to death of you in the past, but. I just when I come out to the CGN conference, I think I'm gonna come up and just give you a big hug, dude.
Praise God, man.
Bromance,
do it,
baby.
Yeah. It's a bromance, yeah, man, dude. Do it, bro. It's all good, man. That's just that is a testimony of the redemption of Jesus, man, of what He's able to do, and I know just for my life, but many others, and man, praise God. I know it's a crazy thing. Sometimes I'll share parts of my testimony or something like that with people, and after maybe about 20 minutes or a half hour of just that interaction, I get that as like, no way. Or even like I'll get to know a person for a few weeks, and then they'll find out my background, of what the Lord brought me out of, and they're like, I got to ask you questions. How did that happen? This doesn't even seem real. But, and I know a lot of people get that same kind of reaction, but man, that's the testimony of Jesus, and that's what drives me. And, that's one of the things I'm really encouraged why I'm encouraged to go out into, the neighborhoods here in Santa Ana, and really connect with youth and everything, and stuff like that. So, it's God's grace.
Absolutely.
Speaking of neighborhoods, nice little segue there, Tommy, because that is the name of the movie. It's like an hour long. It's available on DVD. And for people that are saying, what's a DVD? What's a DVD player? I get that. I guess not many people use DVDs anymore. But there is a film called The Neighborhood Film. It's the story of Tommy and his friends David Zamora and
David Trujillo. And
yes.
Jose Hernandez.
Yes, and you can check that out. It's also available online. So if you go to theneighborhoodfilm.com, you can purchase the DVD. But if you go to, I know it's available on Vudu, V-U-D-U, which is a Fandango thing. You go there and you can rent it for $3 or buy it. I don't know how you buy an online movie, because it's not like you physically own it. I don't know how that works, but check that out. I think it's also available on iTunes. Or so check that out, the neighborhood film with this guy here, Tommy Cota, and his award-winning performance. All right, more phone calls coming up in a little bit here on Pastor's Perspective. Give us a call. The number's there on the bottom of your screen if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube. We're back on Pastor's Perspective, sponsored by Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa. My name is Brian Perez, and today's program is pre-recorded if you're listening on the radio on Monday afternoon. If you're watching on Facebook or YouTube on Thursday afternoon, Cinco de Mayo, you can call us. The number right there on the bottom of your screen. So give us a call. We've got Tommy Cota and Bobby Conway answering your questions today. Right before the break, we were talking a little bit about the movie, about Tommy's life story growing up in the gangs here in Southern California. It's called The Neighborhood, Our Side of the Story. It's available as a DVD if you go to theneighborhoodfilm.com, but it's also available on vudu.com, V-U-D-U, as well as on iTunes. So if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, we'll put the links there on the screen there. Otherwise, you can look that up. But Tommy also wanted to mention something about that happened not too long ago here in the area.
Yeah, just actually just over a week ago. I get to be very involved in the city of Santa Ana, and one of the things as far as ministry goes, Monday through Friday, I get to be on the school campuses, and I facilitate Bible clubs, and
Public schools.
In the public school system. Yeah, I've been doing it for almost 2 decades now. It's just been a blessing. And also get to be contracted by the Department of Education to do a lot of intervention and prevention work with students and their families here in Orange County. And so just over a week ago, a young boy, because of gang violence, was killed. And this is, there's been a handful of times that a student that's been a part of one of our clubs has, been engaged in this and lost their life. And this young boy, I met him, and when he was a freshman, he was a senior, but when he was killed because of gang violence. And so I knew him a couple of years ago, and he was a part of our Bible clubs. And, the reason why I'm sharing this is because I just want to ask everyone to pray, just to pray for this family here in the Santa Ana Unified School District. And pray that, this great opportunity as well that's happening, because I just had the opportunity to connect with superintendent of schools and also of the county. And, the discussion is like, hey, we need the faith community to come alongside. And again, I've been a part of the school district here in Santa Ana for a very long time. So those relationships are there, but now they're just asking, hey, how can we do more? We need more, pretty much like, hey, we need more of the faith community to come alongside some of our groups here and nonprofits, to make a difference because, it is challenging. I think coming out of this whole, these past couple of years during the pandemic and these young kids, just because for whatever reasons, could be their environment or what, but they're being drawn to, having, they want something to belong to, right? They want there's some kind of acceptance, and with school and the challenges that they were having there, the streets were wide open, and and it's just sad, so it just breaks my heart, again, knowing this young boy having an opportunity to pour into him during his freshman year. We just hope and pray, that God just continues to open up some doors here and just to go out and share the gospel and love on this community. Because, there's a whole lot, and there's other cities and communities around wherever people might live where there's, problems with drugs, gangs, and other just violent crime that takes place, and I think it's an opportunity for the church. It's a great opportunity for us as God's people to really step up and get outside the walls of the church.
Yeah.
This was something I challenged our church last Sunday was, hey, God wants us to be outside these walls, and really shine the light of the gospel and to love on people that are really, they're looking for something.
Yeah.
And what they're looking for, we have the answer. That's Jesus, so let's get out there and share the love of God. And what's cool is like, it reminded me, Bobby, because you had shared about, hey, where God had brought me out of, and the Lord allows me to really build a bridge with these youngsters because sometimes they think they might think I'm a probation officer or a cop or something like that. And I start to tell them, a little bit about my story, and I'll show them like a trailer of the neighborhood film, or I'll show them a couple of pictures, of what I was like or what I looked like in the past before Jesus, and then, their guard comes down. They start asking me questions. Well, what happened? How did that happen to you? And I answer all of their questions very candidly, just I'm open and upfront with them. And the next thing you know, it's just I get to build up these relationships. And, it's been a blessing because over the years, as I said, I've been doing it for a long time. And so now there's students that I've met, years ago, and they're like 26, 27 years old with young families and coming to church, come visit us, and introduce me to their children or to their spouse now. So it's very rewarding, when I see that. It's like, oh man, Lord, this is what we do as Christians matter, and I think that's something we need to all just be reminded of.
Yeah, Bobby, I think you wanted to add something.
Yeah. So, Tommy, what is the gang culture like today compared to when we were kids? I mean, I can always remember knowing that Santa Ana had some rough territory, and when you're growing up down there in Mission Viejo, it's kind of like you're in a bubble, right?
Yeah.
But you knew that there was some stuff, and then the gangs up in L.A. with the Bloods and the Crips. What is it like today? I mean, is there still a strong presence of gang association, or is that dying off? Well, what's the feel?
Oh no, there still is. I think that strong association. There's areas in our cities, whether it be in LA or here like in Santa Ana, Orange County, and other places around. It is going to. I think the difference, if really would be like there's a lot of communication through technology now. I do, okay. From what I remember, and one of the biggest changes is that, you going into any neighborhood, whether it be where I was or somewhere else in LA or, somewhere else in Orange County, you would often find like pockets or like in the alleyways or in a street corner or something like that where there would be a group of, 10, 15 homies just standing outside, and the only way you can get that information of what you wanted to communicate, you got to be there, And so there was large groups of people. But now, I don't see that aspect of it as much, where I drive around, I don't see a group of, hey, there's 20, 40 guys out here, got this place sewed up. They're more, now they're behind the walls, but they're communicating, I think, through social media and stuff like that. So I think if I were to answer that question, it would be more technology. Other than that, the violence is still the same. It's just as heart-wrenching, this motive, the drugs are a big part of that, so there's a large, drug scene and the addiction that goes along with it, and so there's some things that just don't change. And it's what's sad is that a lot of these youngsters, they're very young, and I was thinking, I had this conversation with someone just the other day, and they said, you know what, I remember just being a young person too, and having that kind of being drawn to, this kind of a lifestyle as a young person, and so it starts really as young as the fourth grade. In places where gang activity is heavy and it has a presence as young as the fourth grade. And so, we're just having conversations like, okay, the preventative aspect really has to start, like that at that time, in the third and fourth grade level, just to give these kids, some foundations of what they can do rather than getting jumped into a gang or hanging out on the streets.
And is the absence of a father figure in the home still an issue?
Yes. Yeah. It's just a fatherly figure, and the thing is, I think sometimes in some of the homes, and I think, within the immigrant communities, such as Santa Ana's large immigrant community, there is, both mom and dad, and not in all the homes, but when there is, however, both mom and dad, are working, sometimes 2 to 3 jobs.
Right.
And the whole purpose of why they came into this country is because they want to make a better living for their kids, and so they're working hard, and just to know, like, their son or, their daughter even, at the age of, 12, 13, and 14 years old, without any that supervision, they're growing up in the streets, and so it's just very challenging.
Bobby?
So what are some of the different initiation rites amongst gangs, Tommy? And how do these kids get out of the gang? Is there punishment if you exit the gang, or if somebody says, man, I became a Christian, I just want to pull away?
Yeah, how did that go for you?
Is there a way out?
Yeah, there is a way out, but to answer the question as far as initiation, for the most part, that's still the same. From how I understand it, is these kids are getting jumped in, and so whatever that looks like for that particular gang, whether it's like 13 seconds or 20 seconds or 30 seconds, whatever it is, of just kind of getting jumped. You're getting stomped on, for however long until, okay, that's enough, and then you come out of it, with, fat lip and black eyes or whatever. And it's like, okay, now you're jumped into the gang. There's other initiations where I've heard, where there's got to be robberies and other acts of violence. Okay, you want to be a part of our, part of our neighborhood. Okay, not only are we going to jump you in, but now it's like you have to, put in the work. And that's primarily, I think, across the board of putting in the work, meaning the idea behind that is that you have to put in the work in the sense of, doing some violent crime, or doing something like, whether it's robberies or violent crime or gangbanging against other rival neighborhoods. And so, to answer that question as far as initiation and all that stuff, that's how that kind of works. And when someone wants to get out of it, there's, I think it kind of, it really does depend, I think, on what's going on with you as an individual. I know so to answer the question with me, I was 29 years old when my life changed. I just got out of prison. And so a lot of the things and how I lived in prison, kind of like putting in work, I did some of those things. And so I wasn't so much I had to prove myself or prove, like loyalty or anything like that. It was just, it came to a point in my life where I was done, and at that point, with the people that I associated myself with at that time, And it was more like, okay, if that's the decision you're going to make, then the expectation is you're going to stick to it, But if you're going to go back and forth and play this game, there's going to be consequences, And that's kind of the mindset of these individuals that are kind of still living that kind of life, and I know I had that mindset at one point,
Yep.
Yeah. So what about the whole thing as it relates to, being in a gang? Is it scary for you? I mean, are you guys just taking enough drugs to get rid of the fears that come with it? Because when you see some of these movies and stuff, it doesn't look appealing when you're like seeing the movies and stuff. It looks like, very scary. I mean, the guns, the fights, the somebody getting triggered the wrong way, and you're thinking I might be hosed.
Yeah.
How do you cope emotionally and not just live in anxiety and fear when you're in a gang like that?
I think it really is. It's just the mindset that these youngsters have. Nowadays. And, I can say, for me, when growing up in my neighborhood and things that we were doing, there was no thought of that. We just, hey, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to live, and, but in talking with the youngsters now, like for instance, what had taken place, just a couple, last week, I have great relationships with some of these gang members, and they're young. I'm talking they're still 16 years old, and I've known them for a couple years already, but their whole mindset is that they're on high alert. They're in a battlefield, they're in a war zone, and so it's kind of like a mental switch that they have, and so I see that, and I do believe when I talk to them, there is a sense of fear, but for them, they've switched. They've turned the switch on where like, hey, well, it is what it is, though. This is my reality, and so they kind of just pursue that, and they do whatever it is that they need to do. So yeah, just this past week when I was over there, I went over to the heart of this neighborhood where this crime had taken place, and where this murder took place, and a bunch of the homeboys were there, these youngsters, and they were just posted up. I know they were, plenty of them, they were packing guns, and, they had this look like they're just waiting for someone that they don't recognize, or that they do recognize, to light them up. And so when this was on a Saturday afternoon around 11 o'clock in the morning too, okay? It wasn't at night or nothing like that. And so when I got off the car, I said, okay, I made sure I brought my Bible with me so that they see my Bible, right? And a couple of them recognized me pretty quick, and so I was able to just connect with them. But they were on extreme high alert. And these kids too, and not just here in Orange County, but, South LA, so many different places where gang violence is it's just, the term hot, it's happening all the time. These young kids are growing up with PTSD, and they don't even know how to really handle it. There's this one youngster I connect with often, and he's been, a couple of his family members have been murdered right there in front of him, and twice, where he's there holding his dead homeboy or his dead cousin and putting his hands on these bullet wounds, to stop the bleeding, and this is a 15-year-old boy, and the schools, like, I remember just meeting with him at school, and we closed the door, and he just started crying, like just hysterically crying, and he's not, he wasn't trained for this. Trained military people go through PTSD, and they're trained, and here was no training here. And so this is what he's dealing with, and so he's got these mental pictures that he's got to live with, as a young person. And so, and that's where my heart for these young people, I just want to love on them with the gospel and let them know that, hey, that they're loved, and that there is a better way, that they don't have to go down this path of evil and darkness with no hope.
What do you tell Christians who maybe have a heart for, gang, not really a heart for, because if anything, some might even just be afraid. Like, I don't want to approach anybody and tell them about the love of Jesus or anything. I mean, I might get killed. I might get stabbed. I mean, but yet there's still a mission field there.
Yeah. Yeah, there is. And, and that particular mission field isn't for everybody, just like, the mission field, out, to China isn't for everybody, and that is a calling, and it's a gifting. And it's so interesting because there's a lot of people that have that background that go back into these environments because they maybe know how to handle it or know how to navigate through that, which is good. But I've also seen, just people and, women. I've seen women that are, in like their mid 60s and have nothing to do with gang culture. It has no clue about it. And with the boldness of Jesus, just walk up to these gang members and just like, I'm going to pray for you right now and just love on them. And, it's so disarming for some of these gang members. Like, oh, who is this lady? What's going on here? And now all of a sudden she's just praying, in the name of Jesus, and the Lord's impacting these kids. There's one lady, she's with the Lord now, but her name is Janie McLaughlin. And man, I miss her so much, but that was her. She just had this desire and passion to be, in the heart of Santa Ana, in the heart of where these gang territories were, with not even like, hey, I don't care where it's at. There's kids here. There's young people. We're going to go share the gospel. I'm like, Janie, you got to be careful. She's like, why? We got Jesus. I'm like, all right, let's go, and just to watch her serve the Lord in that way. So, yeah, it is definitely a calling and a mission field.
Yeah. Wow. Good conversation today on Pastor's Perspective. Bobby?
Yeah, I was in high school. I was a part of TCH, Tough City Honkies. And we were literally. I went to high school in Northern California, and my friends, we were just crazy. I mean, we were the kind of guys that you just sit and watch Pink Floyd The Wall and take LSD and get a journal and think you're going to find existential meaning to life. But I remember we would wear we just had fun with it, obviously. But we had pink bandanas, and we'd show up at school, and we'd call ourselves TCH, Tough City Honkies. Well, until word got out that some people in San Jose from a gang were going to come down and teach TCH a lesson. Man, you couldn't have got rid of those pink bandanas any quicker. I can remember we were scared to death. Like we did, because we're thinking we're just having fun, just screwing around as kids. But we did not want to mess with the real gangsters, man. Yeah. We're just. But the whole name Tough City Honkies, we used to get a kick out of that.
That's interesting. And you bring that up, Bobby, because that's exactly really, I think, really what young people are looking for, because there's a just even with TCH, right? It was a sense of it was a sense of belonging, right? And acceptance. Like you accepted one another. You had this little group that you had with each other, and you were having fun with it, right? Well, a lot of these young people, I think in places where there's poverty and where there's, just challenges, or even, a culture of gang activity, there is these young people, that's what they're searching for, really, in reality. They're searching for, being accepted for who they are. As they're looking for a sense of belonging. I want to belong to something with meaning and purpose, right? And I do believe that there's a desire in these young people. They want to be celebrated for, being accepted and have this sense of, belonging with purpose and everything. And so, I call it the ABCs. And so these are some things that I bring to the school districts when I work with these young people. Say, hey, it's the acceptance, belonging, and to be celebrated. And so we try to that's what we do. We want to encourage these kids, or reveal to these kids, that these youngsters that are caught up in that hey, that they are accepted by God. They're accepted by Christ for who they are, and that they can belong, to the body of Christ. They can have a sense of belonging and a sense of purpose, and then at the same time, it's like, hey, God celebrates them, for who they are. God loves them, and that's what so these are the things that, myself, with Hope of Life Church and Impact Hope, what we want to do is just really present this to the kids that are in these environments, and just give them a different perspective of life and the hope that's can only be found in Christ.
Yep. So cool. We've been talking to Tommy Cota and Bobby Conway. Tommy's movie, you can see that. It's called The Neighborhood. Go to theneighborhoodfilm.com. Also look for it on iTunes or Vudu, VUDU. It's available to watch and stream there. And Bobby, I guess you'll be making a movie soon about your short-lived gang life. It'll be maybe, what, a two-minute long movie? I don't know.
The TCH crew.
The TCH crew, yes.
Man, I don't know if I can let that one go, man.
I know, man. Just picture my buddies. But I'll tell you what, it's like when you hear the Bloods are coming down or the Crips, you're like, we quickly want to retire from TCH.
Yes.
I was, I was the guy that I actually got along great with, like, lots of pockets of groups in high school. And so I went to a high school that was made up of about 50% Mexican, 50% Caucasian. And I had a lot of, Hispanic friends that were a part of of some gangs and stuff like that, but they were so good to me. Like in a lot of ways, we just had a great relationship. And if anybody ever would have messed with me, they would have come to my defense, just because I think I just had fun with them. We screwed around. We laughed. But man, I never saw myself as a gang type guy. I'd rather dig a hole and hide out than I remember at a party one time, a gang came in and they were carrying baseball bats and everything else, and they were targeting some people in there, a couple white guys they were targeting. But my friend Jorge says, "Bobby, get out of here." He just gave me a heads up, told me to get out of here, and I thought, yeah, that's exactly what I want to do. I want to get the heck out of here. There you go. Yeah. So all that stuff never seemed to appeal, but I'm thankful that you're out of that and you've been redeemed, and you can go in and help people in this. I mean, it takes a certain kind of personality type, I think, even to be in a gang and to commit some of the violent crimes. Like, I'm the guy that, like, I want my wife holding my hand when they're drawing blood from me because I'm worried about passing out.
Yeah.
So, the gang thing's just is not me, man.
That's good. That's a good thing.
The pink bandana thing is not you either.
Yeah. No more pink. Yeah.
No, I
as far as the bandana. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pink's not a bad thing, but the bandana thing. Yeah.
I don't know what message you were trying to put across, but like you said, it was all in fun and
yeah. It was we were basically just saying, we know we're not tough city honks, but we weren't trying to say that we're feminine. We were definitely heterosexual guys that were.
You were making a statement.
Just
that's what it was.
Having a good time.
Yeah, making a statement.
And
that's
who came up with that name? Who came up with that name? Tough City Honkies. That's.
Oh man, we who knows? One of us did. Could have been me, bro.
Yeah, it could have been. All right, that's all the time we have on today's program. Join us again tomorrow. We will be live, and we would love to talk to you then. For Bobby Conway and Tommy Cota, I'm Brian Perez. Have a great evening. Pastor's Perspective is sponsored by Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa.